Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie. Marvel just dropped a brand new Avengers Doomsday trailer with a whole bunch of new footage at CinemaCon, so we will break it all down. Their presentation was for all their upcoming movies, so I'll try to incorporate the other movies beyond just Avengers Doomsday later in the video too. Because it's CinemaCon week, we just had the Spider-Man Brand New Day Sony panel with a whole bunch of new footage. I've already done a video for that, so I'll link it at the end of this. Tom Holland did not even have to go full spoiler bros for them to reveal what's inside the movie. Kevin Feige, the Russos, Chris Evans, and Robert Downey Jr. came to CinemaCon to actually do the presentation and show off the actual trailer footage. I have to be kind of careful about the way I show this because they did allow people to film their panel, but not the actual footage that they showed off, the actual Avengers Doomsday trailer footage. But at the beginning of the footage, we actually hear Patrick Stewart's Professor X at the X Mansion saying something is coming, something we may not be able to deter over the ruins of the X Mansion as he witnesses an incursion happening in the X-Men universe. So this is meant to take place after some of the trailer footage that we've already seen at the X-Mansion, that specific X-Men trailer they released earlier this year. Then we see Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom kneeling and his face looks scarred, so we actually do see his face outside of the mask. He does take the mask off during the movie. There was a lot of questions about that. And also what his face is going to look like, so this is confirming that they are trying to be more comic book accurate, and his face will be scarred like it is in the comics. This was the official promo art of his armor and what he's going to look like during the movie. We actually saw this last year even, so we've actually known what he's going to look like for a while. This just confirms that this is what he actually looks like. It's not fan art. The easiest way to tell whether or not something is real is whether or not Disney uses it officially for a big Kevin Feige panel. Then we see Thor remarking that he's fought many enemies and threats that scare him less than this, talking about Doctor Doom, saying that all his heroes and friends have died. Everything he sacrificed will mean nothing if they don't stand together. So it does sound like there's dissension in the ranks of the newer characters, the new Avengers characters, like the Thunderbolts characters, Sam Wilson's New Avengers, the Fantastic Four characters, pretty much all the hero characters in the different teams, the disparate teams. Thor is also supposed to be one of the main characters. Like in an ensemble cast, there are a couple of mains, like Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. Chris Evans, Steve Rogers is supposed to be one of the others, and Thor is supposed to be one of the others. But then we actually see footage of Thor approaching Doctor Doom with Stormbreaker, not with Mjolnir. The Fantastic Four then meet with the MCU heroes, like we saw in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene. Shang-Chi has a fight scene with Gambit.
You know how long I've been waiting for this? Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself here.
Mystique turns into Yelena Belova, so we do see the X-Men characters interacting with the new Avengers Thunderbolts characters, and we get more of Professor X watching the incursion. Thor then starts fighting Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom one-on-one with Stormbreaker in hand, and Doctor Doom stops him cold in his tracks just to show you how powerful he is. One of the reasons why Doctor Doom works so well and why he can become so much more powerful is because he uses both magic and technology, unlike, say, Iron Man, who is just a man of technology, and just like Doctor Strange, who's just a man of magic. They kind of brushed up against this idea during Avengers Infinity War when Doctor Strange wore Iron Man's armor briefly, and they called him the Iron Mage when they were filming those scenes, but they wound up removing that from the movie. We get another scene of Steve Rogers approaching Thor and says, "Hey pal." Thor says it's not possible, like he didn't think that he'd see young Steve Rogers again, and Steve reaches for Mjolnir and it leaves Thor's hand coming to his, so we do get to see Captain America Steve Rogers wielding Thor's hammer again. Of course they're going to do that. Then they continued with a sizzle reel of some of the footage that we've seen in the other previous trailers so far, like Captain America's foot on the bike pedal when he comes back to his and Peggy Carter's home, Thor speaking with Odin, Allfather, and it ends with Captain America looking at his suit, holding his son, and Cyclops unleashing his optic blast. They also had a couple of jokes during their actual panel saying Disney will return to CinemaCon in the Avengers Doomsday meme style, like so-and-so will return in Avengers Doomsday. There were also a couple other big details they revealed at the panel. So Avengers Endgame is going to be re-released in theaters, and just like they did when they re-released it a couple of years ago, like after it officially came out, then they re-released it later in the year, they're adding even more deleted scenes and even more extra footage than they did last time. So if you saw the re-release last time, there were a couple deleted scenes. There was a Stan Lee tribute. Like they just added more into the movie. They eventually did the same thing for the Spider-Man movies, so don't be surprised if they continue to do stuff like that in the future as well. You also notice Kevin Feige is wearing a Doctor Doom hat now because he wears hats for whatever production they're currently working on, and it's just Doctor Doom's head as the logo. Sometimes his hats won't just be the simple logo for the movie, sometimes they'll be the symbols from the movie. He did the same thing for Deadpool and Wolverine with the symbol of both of their masks. While he was talking about the movie, though, Avengers Doomsday, he said that it starts where Avengers Endgame ended, I'll explain what that means in a second, but goes all the way back to where it started with the first X-Men movie.
Doomsday picks up where Endgame left off, but it also goes all the way back to the original X-Men finally bringing the crossover event that fans have been waiting for, with Avengers and the X-Men together on the screen for the very first time.
There are actually a lot of Easter eggs, both in real life and in the context of the actual story of the movie, baked into that too. When he says Avengers Doomsday starts where Avengers Endgame ended, it means that Avengers Doomsday is more literally written to be a direct sequel to Avengers Endgame, so assume that you're a person who has only seen the Avengers movies, it'll just seem like the next step, like what happens right after the end of Avengers Endgame. This is also why that Captain America teaser scene, the Steve Rogers Avengers Doomsday trailer, felt more like an Avengers Endgame post-credit scene. A lot of what's happening with Doctor Doom's character, his motivation, and the reason why he comes for Steve Rogers and the other characters is based on what they did during Avengers Endgame, based on the consequences of what they did during that movie. But when Kevin Feige says that it goes all the way back to where it started with the first X-Men movie, that's actually one of the first movies, not the first movie, but one of the first movies that Kevin Feige worked on when he started in Hollywood as the assistant of Lawrence Shula Donner, who was an executive at Fox. And on that movie, while he was her assistant, he became an assistant producer working on the X-Men movie. A lot of his time was spent walking around talking with Hugh Jackman. He even gave Hugh Jackman rides to the airport during his auditions. He's actually talked about this at length, Hugh Jackman, about how at the time when he became Wolverine in the original X-Men movie, he didn't know anything about the character, so Kevin Feige was like the guy who explained the comics, all the Wolverine comics to him. But in all the X-Men footage from the new trailer that they showed off at CinemaCon, you notice that it's happening around and after the battle at the X-Mansion, the one with the Sentinels that we saw in the trailer that they released earlier this year with Cyclops' optic blast. The early theory is that it's Doctor Doom who comes to the X-Mansion trying to stop them, and he's the one that's controlling the Sentinels using his magic, like using runes to control the Sentinels, but they're meant to be comic book accurate Sentinels, like 90s X-Men designs, because all their costume design language is based on that same era. One of the big theories, too, in the service of expediency and them just having so much story to actually cover so many characters, is they'll simplify and just say that this happens to be the universe that Gambit came from, because at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine, we actually saw footage of him, like Deadpool is in the TVA watching the footage in the background on the monitors. You see him also being saved from the Void by a sling ring, but you're not really sure where he's going or who's saving him. All the other characters were taken to their original universes by the TVA, so the theory here is that it was him being taken to this X-Men universe that we're going to see in Avengers Doomsday. And because he has a big fight scene with Shang-Chi, it means that he, as well as the other X-Men characters, will interact with everybody else too. They will start to address the age-old question, who would win in a fight, the X-Men or the Avengers? Based on the roster they're going with, I would normally give the edge to the X-Men, but if you have the Sentry there, it kind of skews things in the favor of the new characters because he's so much more OP than everybody else.
Why would a god take orders from anyone at all?
But it kind of does seem like Doctor Doom is going to spank Thor, because if he goes at him and just stops him dead in his tracks, like he comes at him with Mjolnir, it's meant to be a comp to him coming for Thanos with Mjolnir. Like he got Thanos in the chest pretty hard, he almost wound up killing him, but he didn't go for the head. Would not be surprised if he also tries to go for the head, but Doctor Doom stops him using his magic. Making all the death predictions, it would be crazy to see them kill Thor at the end of the movie, but I do think that we're going to see Thor core stuff during Avengers Secret Wars, so we will see how they deal with that. Chris Hemsworth has talked about doing more Marvel movies as Thor after Avengers Endgame, like Thor 5, so whatever winds up happening, however they want to trick us, I do think that Thor is going to ultimately survive beyond Avengers Secret Wars. Absolutely cannot wait to see Steve Rogers wielding Mjolnir again. You remember, though, that this version of Steve Rogers is only slightly older than the one that we saw at the end of Avengers Endgame, though. Like, not that much time has gone by, only enough that he's been living with Peggy Carter and they have since had his first son. I believe the other footage that we saw of their house seemed more like the 1950s, and it's the 1940s when he went back during Avengers Endgame, so only like a little bit of time has gone by. While they were doing their presentation, very controversial, the Russos claimed Doctor Doom will be a much better villain, much better character than Thanos, so we will see what people say about that after we actually see the movie. Obviously, they want to hype up their new movie, and they're basically saying that Robert Downey Jr. is a better actor than Josh Brolin, but we will see how that goes down. Josh Brolin was amazing as Thanos, and they spent a lot of time developing that character, but Robert Downey Jr. is absolutely fantastic. That's why they brought him back, because they want all that extra juice to get people excited for Avengers Doomsday. There are also a number of advantages of having a villain who looks more human-like and has an actual face that doesn't get super uncanny valley, although the visual effects for Thanos did get very good by the time we got to Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. To Marvel's credit, a lot of people do rag on their special effects being terrible, visual effects being terrible. That happened during their crunch during Marvel Phase 4, Marvel Phase 5, where it turned into a lot of slop just because they were trying to crank way too much stuff out way too fast. One of the reasons why they delayed Avengers Doomsday is so they had way more time to actually polish the movie, also because the scripts weren't really done and there's no way they would have been able to release it on time if they had tried to release it in May.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Them's fighting words.
Oh, I
Doing this again?
Are they really? Really?
Keep it on the set, guys. Keep it on the set.
All right.
Keep it on the set.
Also, them moving the movie till after Spider-Man Brand New Day fixes a lot of continuity errors that would have actually come up, issues that they would have had to deal with during those different movies. It's just a lot easier to explain Spider-Man Brand New Day happening before Avengers Doomsday and before everything goes crazy. But I know there's still all kinds of questions about Sadie Sink's multiverse character, like being another version of Jean Grey. How are they going to explain her? Will she come from the MCU, like naturally occurring Jean Grey already in the MCU, or will she be from another universe? She is meant to be the permanent main MCU version of Jean Grey on the new rebooted X-Men movie team once they release that in 2028, though. So this is why she's probably not going to be like a real huge character during Avengers Doomsday, because they have so many of the other X-Men from the classic film that they're focusing on in that movie. So if they do Sadie Sink in Avengers Doomsday, maybe just a background role in a bigger role during Avengers Secret Wars. They're also getting ready to film Avengers Secret Wars, so we'll actually start to hear more about what's going on in that movie too as we get closer to Doomsday coming out in theaters. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below if you have any big questions about the new footage or what's happening in the movie just in general. There were also a lot of other trailers at CinemaCon, so I'm trying to do videos for all the really big stuff, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Now that we're getting closer to Spider-Man Brand New Day, we'll see more official trailers from that. They just did a big CinemaCon panel with new footage. I did a video for it, so I'll link it at the end of this. And as we get closer to that movie coming out, we'll start to see more official Avengers Doomsday trailers and teasers. Everybody click here for that Spider-Man Brand New Day CinemaCon trailer, and click here for all my other Avengers Doomsday teaser trailer videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.